And we kick things off with Naparima MP and UNC Shadow Minister for National Security and, of course, Foreign Affairs. Let me say a pleasant good evening to Mr. Rodney Charles. Good evening, sir.
A pleasant good evening to you, sir.
Thank you so
and
much.
to your viewers.
Thank you. So much has been happening, so much taking place, and I want to thank you for taking time out to link with us here this evening. As we come on the air, the murder toll for the year so far, as it stands, is 435. Very unfortunate. And of course, so much is being said about it. You did mention recently about the gangster-style killings of the 4 children, with injuries to 5 others in Guanapo, and you said it's a symptoms of total collapse of all our institutions. Please expand.
Yes, it is easy for us and first to think that the problem of police, commissioner of prisons, the head of the defense force alone. So we look at the crime problem as only a problem of the national security apparatus and its failings. But it is really a symptom of the total collapse of all the institutions in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is just one part of the total collapse. For example, our schools are breeding grounds of warlords. You see children fighting and the kinds of weapons being used. You see the Minister of Education, she's more concerned with her hairstyle and her clothes rather than teaching our children to be productive citizens. So you have 17,000 students coming out from the secondary school system and less than 500 jobs created. What's happening to the 16,005? You go to schools like Gasparillo Secondary School. I think MP Anita Haynes pointed out that the buildings are in a state of collapse. Without teachers in the 5th Company Baptist School. So our schools are falling down. Our porous borders, you could take how many guns you wish off the streets. But if tomorrow guns come in to replace them, then we are back to square one. In fact, I think a couple of weeks ago we had some like 200 Venezuelans who were deported. And the reports we heard is that most of them came back the next day by maxi taxi across the Gulf of Paria into Trinidad. So that therefore, if we do not solve the porous borders and get our Coast Guard to come out of Stowers Bay and work, then we're pitching marble and mud.
And I agree with you, MP. I mean, there seems to be a lot of talk, and as well as a lot of verbal acrobatics that is taking place. You said that talk and more talk will not solve the crime situation. Recently, the Prime Minister requested a meeting, a sit down with the opposition. Today, that correspondence highlights, of course, that they will, of course, look at what was sent by the opposition, pick things, according to the correspondence again, that are real, that are not fictional, things that perhaps they can add to. How much of this is just simply trying to either buy time or gain political traction and not getting to the core issue of this crime situation?
Dr. Rowley understands that he's clueless. He and Fitzgerald Hines and his entire cabinet, they are clueless when it comes to crime. So he is skillfully trying to shift the blame to the opposition. So they would say it is both of us are incapable of solving the problem. But if you look at, he called for a meeting with the opposition leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa. But if you look at the tone of his response tonight, it was insulting. I will pick those that are not fictional and ignore those that are unimportant. That does not set the tone for productive conversation between two major parties in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Rowley has insulted us in Parliament. He just told us, get out of Trinidad, go back Barbados, get away from here, you imps and mimps. And he is classless, clueless, and does not even know how to make these talks work. So I suspect that he will grandstand, buying time, pretend that he's doing something, pretend that he's talking and engaging, and nothing will happen out of it.
Yeah, but we don't have that luxury at this time. We're talking 435 murders. There's no telling how that's going to lay out in 2024 if it is that we don't get a handle on this situation. I mean, many of our senior citizens are now deemed as soft targets. They don't come out, they don't run errands, they're afraid. People are going out, they're changing their, as far as their activities and what have you. And every day it seems to be getting worse and ridiculous, I might add, when you hear about the fact that people are using a brush cutter and a man walks up to you and he points a gun and takes away your lawnmower and your brush cutter. The fact that the lady selling popcorn, the man who is delivering the fast food, a child's chocolate candy van. It seems that no planning even goes into it. People are getting up and saying, you know what, I am going to do whatever because chances of me being caught or any justice being deemed on this is very slim or none at all. That's the reality.
And that speaks to clearly the failure of our education system, where you do not even teach people civics, you do not teach patriotism, you do not teach them. Let me tell you, we used to complain about the white people colonial education. I'm old enough to have experienced colonial education and our education. I recall every day in primary school, Santa Flora Government School, we got a glass of milk and 2 high protein biscuits. It was the white people doing that for us. Today, I am told children are going to school hungry, sleep. When a teacher told me the boy was sleeping in the classroom, and he said, "Miss, I haven't eaten for 2 days." They just get up and drink sugar water and come to school. A person like that is, we have children making children. And when Kamala Prasad had the program for early childhood centers, and we had hundreds of them built all through Trinidad and Tobago, and many of them now are overgrown with bush because the government doesn't have the intellect, the capacity to see that if somehow the parents fail, the system education started from preschool could ensure that a child gets a good education. So that when he enters in full year at age 5 in the primary school system, he'll be equal to the children of the middle class who go to Montessori school and all kinds of schools to get extra lessons. We have a society that has collapsed under Dr. Rowley. It has collapsed. And I think to bring it back would be a very difficult exercise in 2025 when we win the election.
Well,
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, go ahead.
They talk about bail to lock up people. You know we have more people per capita in prison in Trinidad and Tobago than in North Korea, than in Iran. If you look at the statistics per capita, we are ranking in the top 25% of countries in the world, and they want to pass more laws to lock up more people, to keep them in prison, because the system cannot provide justice on time. So you have young men who probably miss a payment for maintenance in prison. They can't take bail, so they remand yard, waiting for 5 and 10 years. And we don't understand that in prison, his children are not getting the right nurturing that is necessary for them to be productive citizens. The children of persons in prison who are there because our judicial system is failing, the children are potential recruits for the gangs.
But let me ask you, and that's true.
We have Venezuelans. We're not integrating them into our education system in Trinidad. And they talk about integration, but no teacher has been trained to have a bilingual education, to dispense bilingual education in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have a hodgepodge system. When those children are growing up, helter-skelter, like common fowl in the yard. And in 10, 15 years' time, we are going to have a problem with Latin criminals. Through no fault of their own. And many of them born in Trinidad. They're citizens of this country, entitled under the Constitution to equal rights under the law. And they're doing wickedness like sending them back to Venezuela, and they hop a boat and they come back to Trinidad and they hang around.
But let me ask you this, Mr. Charles. I mean, and it seems as though the buck is being passed around and around. You have a Minister of National Security who some time back said, listen, his role is basically to manage policy. He is not a crime fighter. You have the Commissioner of Police, who has made it quite clear that yes, we need spiritual values and what have you. And I asked the question: are they then going to arm the police with Bibles and not guns? What is really taking place? So it gives you a sense of exactly where does the responsibility lie, and then it said again that we as citizens have our role to play. But then again, that in itself has now been outlined clearly as to just saying if you see something, report something, and what have you. I mean, we are talking about home invasions that are taking place. What's surprising to us is if we get up one morning and hear that the night before there was no criminal activity. It seems that we're getting up every morning and we expect to have some report, something on the news, something on the front page of the newspaper. But people are basically prisoners in their home. And as much as there's a lot of talk and a lot of sitting down and a lot of verbal acrobatics that is taking place, it does nothing as far as securing the safety of the citizens in this country. Where are we going to be? If we're at 435 today as we speak, what can we expect before the year comes to an end?
And the problem is the society is not aware that the responsibility lies squarely with the government they have elected, which is the Keith Rowley administration, who collect our taxes, who waste our money, who mismanage the TTPS, and is responsible for crime. So we're in a situation where I hear some people saying, what is the opposition doing? We have no resources in this system. We cannot tell the police what to do. I was put out of a police station one day when I went to inquire about a constituent and what had happened to him. I was put out. And the person, right, if I step into the station, he said he will charge me. So the Trinidad has to recognize, we have to be big men. If you cannot elect Keith Rowley and give him a bribe when it comes to incompetence and criminality. And it has reached the stage where that murder that we spoke about with the 4 children, gangster-style killing of 4 children, and in Guanapo, they found TTPS markings on the shells. TTPS, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service markings on the shells. Where are we going? Who can we trust? And let me tell you, we have reached a stage where people, foreign countries are telling their citizens, do not come to Trinidad and Tobago. The last U.S. travel advisory said, reconsider travel to Trinidad and Tobago. And this brings me to the point. The Prime Minister went to the UN General Assembly, where we have the President of the General Assembly. And let me tell you, we who arranged for us, Trinidad and Tobago, to sit in the seat of the President of the General Assembly. We did it in 2013 because every 10 years, a 10-year cycle, it comes to CARICOM, and CARICOM alone. 3 countries that have had presidents of the General Assembly, so they were out of the equation. Guyana, St. Lucia, and what's the other country? Oh, Antigua and Bermuda. Ambassador Ash. So when we put upon him, ever since they came into power, to know we'll have a president of the General Assembly. Hear what Dr. Rowley went and told the General Assembly. We have murders. He spoke about the murders in the mass killings in Guanapo. We have murders, and you know what? We're talking with the U.S. We have to talk to the U.S. to tell them stop bringing guns to Trinidad. And you know what else? We're looking at the Arms Trade Treaty. Nonsense. He told the whole world that we had a mass killing, and he told the whole world that we have no solutions whatsoever to the mass killings. His job is to tell the world that here now we're locking our borders to prevent guns and prevent human trafficking. We have scanners at our ports to stop the guns from coming into Trinidad. It is not the U.S. job to stop guns from coming into Trinidad. It is our job and our job alone to stop guns from coming into Trinidad.
Then basically, is it a sense of not understanding the responsibility as far as what it entails to secure the citizenry of this country? I mean, what can be expected from these talks with the opposition, besides what we've already seen or playing out? What is hard facts, and this is based on the correspondence. It is something that they would deal with. Anything that is fictional, and you're right, I agree with you. Setting such a tone with such language, it doesn't really, give us that much trust or confidence that this is something that is going to be constructive in the interest of us as citizens of this country. Is it a matter of buying time, or is it simply, unbridled incompetence that simply is just going to be with us until the bell rings for a general election?
You hit the nail on the head, Mikey. You hit the nail on the head. It is a question of buying time. He's run out. Dr. Rowley has run out of excuses. Fitzgerald Hines has nothing to say. He gets into high-flown, stupid language that makes no sense, that makes us a laughing stock globally. So what he has is he's buying time. He says the meetings will come after the budget debate. Right? One would have thought that he would have wanted to bring forward the discussions to inform the budget. So you cannot make decisions affecting national security and we pass a budget and then come to discuss, come up with new ideas, and there's no budget related to it. If you understand what I'm saying, he's buying time for election. You remember with Petrotrin, he bought time by saying we're going to give it to the trade unions. And the trade unions will move to patriotic. They will move from being providing labor to the owners of capital, to own Petrotrin. He bought time. Many Petrotrin workers who were fired voted for the PNM on the assumption that they will be getting jobs in a refinery owned by the oilfield workers trade union. He bought time. As soon as he won the election, he dropped it. So we are nowhere advanced in that area.
Let me ask you before we wrap up. Of course, Budget Day, October 2nd. Do you think that anything will be there, especially for grassroots, for people who are trying to make ends meet on a daily basis? Is this going to be a friendly budget for the average citizen?
The budget is going to be another hoax for the average citizen, even if they pass allocations for, let's say, homeless people to advance the social safety net. If they pass $100 million, there's no assurance that $100 million will be released by the Minister of Finance to these ministries. He is going to come as usual. The PNM is excellent at this version of the PNM. Eric Williams was different. You had serious people there. Dr. Rowley is a con man. He knows how to fool us, to buy time. He will come with a nice budget, but understand election is in 2 years' time. He is not going to provide CPEP and all these jobs now because he knows we have a short-term mentality. 6 months before election, he suffer everybody, grind them into poverty, and 6 months before elections, he said elections will be given when they're constitutionally due, 2025. So he's going to grind us into poverty and then open out the treasury and fool us enough. Many of us will fall for the gimmick and vote them in and then turn around to suffer afterwards. One of the things that this year's budget, I am going to start by saying I have been in the parliament for 8 years. I've made 1,200 suggestions for national security and foreign affairs. Not one, not a single idea has been taken on board by the government. Right? And so it means that this government operates as a dictatorship. They listen to their own advice. They have an incompetent group of cabinet ministers, the Minister of Labor. Have you heard from him recently?
No.
He's collected close to $50,000 a month for nothing. We have a Minister of Education, and we know we have holidays. We know we have to repair schools. But the number of schools which could not open or opened with broken down facilities and infrastructure, it shows incompetence. And sometimes I love my country. We all love Kamala Prasad. You, Mikey, we love our country. But increasingly you're getting the impression that you're bouncing your head against a wall as this country collapses. And somebody will ask, our grandchildren will ask us, what did you do, Grandpa, to stop the rot that is taking place? Sometimes you feel that, sometimes you feel it's hopeless. It feels that you need to do more.
And I agree with you. I mean, every day it seems as though that, what we know and what we love about our country is just simply slipping away. And it's starting to be unrecognizable, especially considering the fact that we are indeed a blessed twin island nation. Some of the best people, but unfortunately.
God gave us oil, gas. He gave us the presidency of the General Assembly. And I could assure you that this government has not sat down and said, how are we going to make this work for us? How are we going to get the UN to help us with our naval vessels, training of the Coast Guard? How are we going to use it to help us to advance Trinidad and Tobago's interests? Zelensky went from Ukraine president. He went to the UN. Two things: demonize Russia and get billions of dollars to fight the war against Russia. He got both. He got billions of dollars because he tells the world, I'm fighting for democracy. I'm fighting for the United States, Canada, Europe. So give me money. We go to the UN. We have the president of the General Assembly. We have a problem with crime. And the Prime Minister is talking foolishness. He hasn't left with a cent of donations, a cent of aid to help us in our problem with crime. And that is what makes him, as someone who look in the UN, it makes me want to cry about how we waste opportunities with a clueless government and an incompetent Prime Minister.
Mr. Charles, I want to thank you so much for taking time out this evening. I know you're at the function, and do give the birthday greetings to the young lady for me on my behalf. Thank you so much.
My granddaughter,
Suri Charles.
5 years old.
5 years old.
Okay.
So happy birthday to Suri. And we'll talk after the budget.
Mikey, don't give up. Keep fighting day in, day out. We cannot. I see you're doing a human task for Trinidad and Tobago, and I know it could become depressing sometimes and demoralizing. Keep up the job, brother.
Thank you so much.
Something will give.
Thank you so much. All the best to you and your family. Thank you so much.